all South Africans to play their role in reducing the spread of the virus. Alert level 2 does not mean the virus is gone. People must drink responsibly and follow the adopted health procedure and protocols to fight this virus. The health department needs to protect those workers by providing them with PPEs and also filling all vacant posts within the public health sector. On the public service health and strategy and safety protest, the CEC expressed its total support for the planned protest to protect and defend frontline workers that are being ravaged by the COVID-19 virus. Our union in the health sectors are busy mobilizing against the uncaring attitude of the health department in preparation for a national day of action. Government's failure to comply with the country laws cannot be tolerated. On the support for the NHLS strike, we congratulate and offer solidarity to the workers at the National Health Laboratory Services under the leadership of Nihau for standing up and making their voices heard. We call on all workers and community to support this strike action. On the UIF test fund, the CEC called on the UIF to expedite the process of paying the outstanding monies to the deserving workers. These delays are unacceptable. This fund must be extended to September 15 in line with level 2 restrictions for workers, business and sectors that remain under partial or full lockdown. On building domestic manufacturing capacity, Cosatu demands that all PPEs must be manufactured locally to empower the South African local manufacturing industries. Government should put measures in place to encourage local business, to increase local production and stimulate job creation. To deal with corruption, government needs to introduce an online transparency public procurement system for all organs of state, that is, national, provincial, and local government, public entities, and state-owned enterprises. These PPEs must comply with the required safety standard and be of acceptable quality. On organization, the first issue we discussed was the future of the trade union. The current economic crisis, including retrenchment, represent a big test for trade union movement. Union will die or survive depending on how they react to the crisis. While there are retrenchments, we have also noticed that fears of redundancy and an increase in anxiety is driving a surge in numbers of workers joining our unions. But these workers need to be serviced. Let me repeat this. But these workers need to be serviced for them to retain the trust of the union. We caution workers again following demagogic unions who offer them false promises and quick solutions and dish them when they are in trouble. On new affiliation application, the CEC welcomed the growth of the Federation under these difficult conditions. The Federation has recruited about 25,000 members since the beginning of the year and has received affiliation application from several unions. We also welcome back our former members from the National Transport Movement and Agricultural Food and Allied Workers Union, AFATU, who have decided to come back home. These two unions have brought about 100,000 members back to the Federation. We continue to process the application of other unions who have applied to affiliate to Cosatu in line with our Constitution. We continue to believe in the principle of one country, one federation, and the champion of unity of workers. On the future of work, The CEC reflected on the challenges related to the new type of work and the change brought by technology. COVID-19 outbreak has accelerated and exacerbated this situation. Cosatu's planned National Bargaining Conference will be grappling with this and the other issues, but our position remains clear that technology must work for humanity and not to replace humanity. On the public service salary dispute, the CEC reflected on the ongoing salary dispute regarding the non-implementation of Clause 3.3 of Resolution 1 of 2018, in which the public sector workers did not receive their well-deserved salary increase for 2020. Our union has pursued a multi-pronged strategy that involves arbitration, political engagement at the level of presidents, and mass mobilization. It is clear that the National Treasury is leading an onslaught against workers and is trying to erode their hard-won rights to suppress their wages. This is poison relations and is going to lead to a bruising fight if not addressed soon. The CEC resolved to lead a fight against this attempt to undermine collective bargaining. On defending collective bargaining, the Federation is disturbed that government is leading an assault on collective bargaining. The failure to honor signed agreement is nothing but a declaration of war. We've entered terrain where signed contracts means nothing and where rules are suspended, and this can only result in chaos. The CEC has resolved that all Cosatu unions should fight back and go on strikes if necessary to defend collective bargaining. COVID-19 should not stop workers from defending their hard-won rights. We have the freedoms and rights we fight for, and we lose those we do not defend. On government employees housing scheme, the CEC is calling the Minister of Public Service and Administration to expedite the process of a government employee housing scheme. We reject the current arrangement for using capitalist banking system to give workers financial support for housing. Workers should be provided housing through their pension money in the GEPF. We demand that the contract with the South African home loans be terminated and a new viable vehicle that will administer the housing scheme be established. On the National Senior Certificate Examination, the CEC endorsed SACTU's call for the Department of Basic Education to delay the start of the examination to make sure that everybody is accommodated. On retrenchments, the CEC noted that the CCMA is inundated with Section 189 notice that many employers are using COVID-19 crisis to lay off workers even if their income statement does not suffer financial hardship. Cosatu demands that government ensures that all employers who have received government support through the IF and other mechanisms must place on moratorium on retrenchment. On the SAC board, the CEC restated the Federation's call for the SABC board to step down. The board's misguided approach targeting workers is unacceptable. The SACB management was exposed by our affiliate Communication Workers Union at the CCMA for presenting a misleading document to justify their decision to retrench workers. It is obvious that they have been telling a heap of sensational lies to the public all along. We demand their immediate removal and the abandonment of Section 189 application to allow a coherent turnaround strategy that will have the endorsement of all stakeholders. On telecom retrenchment and pages, the meeting condemned the ongoing retrenchment that have seen 2,000 workers losing their jobs over 12 months, with more, let me read it again. The meeting condemned the ongoing retrenchment that have seen 2,000 workers lose their jobs over 12 months, with 220 more on firing lines. We denounce the sinister plan to page a union shop steward by the same management that paid itself millions last year. These workers are being sacrificed in the name of profit, and the Federation is ready to lay pushback against Telkom management. There is no other option but to fight back. On amendment of Section 189 of the Labour Relations Act, the CEC concluded that the fundamentals of our labour market policy are not sound, and that the overall thrust of the legislative framework remain inadequate to protect workers against retrenchment. The Federation demands the amendment of Section 189 of the LRA so that when employers wish to retrench, employers has to negotiate with the workers. Cosatu 1 compels a third-party intervention prior to the retrenchment taking place. Employers should not be allowed to retrench until the process is complete. Furthermore, the severance package of 1 week for every year of service should be increased to 1 month of every year of service. On call to tighten the insolvency laws, Cosatu demand the tightening of the insolvency laws to alleviate the effects of liquidation on workers and their financial security. Union and worker must be informed timelessly of any financial difficulties being faced by business and any possible liquidation at the time that it is contemplated or treated. Any application for provisional liquidation must be served upon the union and the workers. This application must prove that there are no alternatives to liquidation, which will keep the business going and will save jobs. Also, the employer must negotiate with union. If the company is indeed forced to liquidate, the workers' and employers' contribution to medical aid and retrenchment funds should not farm off the liquidated business. In respect of wages and other benefits, workers should be ranked above the secured creditors. On business rescue, the meeting condemned the self-serving conduct of business rescue practitioners, especially in case of EDCOM. The Federation demanded an amendment of the Competition Act of 2008 that deals with business rescue so that it can introduce more stringent regulation. Business rescue has a very poor success rate of 33%. On the outstanding legislation, the CEC expressed its unhappiness over President Ramaphosa's failure to sign the PIC Amendment Bill and government failure to implement the Unemployment Insurance Act. The PIC Amendment Bill was passed by Parliament in March 2020. And I think it should be 2019. But a year and a half later, the President has failed to sign it into law. Also, Parliament passed and the President assented to the Employment Insurance Amendment Act in 2017 and the Labour Laws Amendment Act in 2018. The Labour Law Amendment Acts provide for all workers the right to paid parental and adoption leave. To date, the National Treasurer, the Department of Public Services and Administration, the Department of Employment and Labour has refused to abide by these laws and has refused to allow public servants their legal rights to pay parental and adoption leave. This is unacceptable and a point to the reactionary and inconsistent conduct of this administration. Government must stop abusing workers and testing their patience. On the socio-economic and on the national treasure in particular, the CEC has concluded that the National Treasury has mutated into a local version of International Monetary Fund with its insistence of failing neoliberal policies and unpardonable mismanagement of our economy. This mismanagement of the economy and the offensive against the public service show Treasury's bottomless contempt for the workers and the poor. The National Treasury's current policies perpetuate racism and apartheid, separate development because they punish the poor black majority while protecting the inherent privileges of the white minority. Cosatu holds the ANC responsible for this crisis because it rejected the proposal for the president to have the authority to override the Treasury's budget and instead reaffirm the Treasury's independence as the core institution of determining budget. The consecutive wing of the ANC in winning this policy, or winning the policy fight, and the poor are going to pay for a huge price for it. This current Treasury is not sustainable, and a pushback is necessary if NASREC resolution are to be implemented. On the economic stimulus, President Ramaphosa's initial 500 billion rand stimulus is inadequate and is not as strong as his language about the economic threat. His prescription did not live to his diagnosis. We call on him to honor his commitment when he announced an economic recovery plan. On the economic recovery plan itself, we expect a drastic economic recovery plan that must include the following: a bold 1 trillion rand stimulus plan, reviewing the excessive lending criteria imposed by the bank on the 200 billion rand loan guarantee scheme that has seen only 37 of its applicants rejected. Further repo rate cuts by the South African Reserve Bank and Commercial Bank, adjusting their lending rates beyond the cuts provided by the Reserve Bank. The government cannot continue to reward financial manipulation instead of economic productivity. Cosatu wants government to act to protect homeowners from the bank attachment. Bank and other lenders to extend loan repayment holiday to the struggling consumers and business, or in debt forgiveness for those consumers who have lost their job, who have lost wages and jobs, and business in danger of collapsing. Dedicated sectoral support from government, banks, insurance industry for key economic sectors still under partial or full lockdown, or who are experiencing serious financial difficulties. For an example, tourism, restaurant, hotels, hospitality, etc. Fast-tracking the infrastructure program, investment that can create jobs and unlock economic activities in these sectors: port, freight and passenger rail, energy, agriculture and water. Unlocking the mechanism to increase impact investment from the current 2% up to 10% provided under the existing regulation. Impact investment must be directed towards investment that will create jobs and spur the economic growth. A mass public employment program that will ensure that all South Africans are guaranteed a minimum amount of work, and that moves away from the cheap labor system of the expanded and community public works program. A buy local campaign targeting not only public procurement but also the private sector and consumer. This must include targeting key items for a buy local campaign as well as key large public and private sector procures. It must also include using tax incentives and private sector reward system to incentivize local procurement. The urgent adoption of ESCOM social compact and the implementation plan by the Presidential Working Committee, the economy cannot grow without a reliable and affordable energy supply. On the retirement funds, the CEC reiterated its position that pensions remain workers' deferred wages and should be invested in ways that benefit workers and should not be used to deal with government policy failures. If government wants to even consider its ideas and proposals, it needs first serious fight to fight corruption and also stop pushing anti-worker and anti-poor policies. We also reiterate our position for COVID-19 affected workers to be allowed access to a portion of their pensions. On the State Bank, the CEC concluded that the establishment of a state bank is long overdue. The COVID-19 outbreak exposed our shortcoming of our financial system. Small businesses are forced to depend on the benevolent billionaires for funding, and this is unsustainable. On the gender-based violence, the CEC expressed its worry about the rising level of gender-based violence in the country. Government needs to introduce mandatory minimum sentences for gender-based violent cases to act as a deterrent. The meeting acknowledged the government's commitment to ratify the ILO Convention 190. We call on government to move with speed to process it through the cabinet and table it in Parliament for endorsement. On the politics, and the ANC and the Alliance and the corruption, the terminal decline characterized by political rot and the privacy continues to eat away at the soul of the ANC. The lack of political discipline and professionalism risk alienating the workers away from the ANC. Workers are fast losing confidence in the willingness and the capacity of the ANC to honestly fight corruption. They are starting to view their public statement as nothing but phony outrage for political propaganda purposes. It does not help for the ANC to issue statement for condemnation regarding the state of corruption, while reinstating people implicated in the VPS looting scandal and also promoting former mayors for facing corruption allegation to higher position. We call on the ANC NEC to reverse these inwards looking and political reckless decisions. The cancer of corruption is also weakening the alliance and undermines its capacity to achieve its objective and honor its commitment. It is all very well for the alliance to be public militant about many transformation issues and set up goals like the NHI basic income grant, but if corruption continues, there will be no resources to implement any of those agreements. We have noted effort from the President Ramaphosa to push back against corruption, but we can only judge the result and not the intention. Aggressive prosecution is the only dependent vaccine to cure the virus of corruption, not speeches, not letters, or public proclamation. President Ramaphosa will not win the fight against corruption if he continues to be confrontational averse. He needs to start swinging a big ace if you want people to trust, not ace, axe, if he wants people to trust and believe in him. Half the purpose of the criminal justice system is deterrence. So if the President Ramaphosa wants to win this fight, he needs to ensure law enforcement agencies are efficient in investigating, prosecuting, and imprisoning the corrupt CEOs, senior managers, and politicians. President Ramaphosa needs to know that workers remember his brave New Frontier talked during his campaign for the presidency, and those that are the standard by which he is measured. So far, workers feel that the president campaigned in poetry, but he is governing in prose. He must stop negotiating with criminals and use the only language that they will understand, which is prosecution and sentencing. On the general strike, the CEC has resolved to develop a campaign against corruption and the sixth administration failure to eradicate it. Strikes remain an effective way of expressing anger, fatigue, and frustration. Ours is a dire situation, and it is time to fight. We are mobilizing for a general strike against corruption on the 7th of October 2020, on the World Day for Decent Work. Workers and citizens need to force government to act against corruption. On local government election, the Federation reflected on the current state of municipality and resolved that the current political proposal to postpone local government election is unacceptable. If we allow local government election to be postponed, we'll be complicit in corruption. Voters have the right to express themselves and rate the performance of their councillors on the ballot next year. On international, once again, the CEC condemned the recent pronouncement by the Zimbabwe ruling party, the ZANU-PF, that the ZCTU and other community-based or civil society organizations in Zimbabwe are terrorist organizations. We further call upon the AU and SADC to act decisively against the humanitarian crisis in Zimbabwe. The CEC also note that the US and the EU sanctions against Zimbabwe hurts the ordinary people in Zimbabwe. And the CEC is calling the US and the EU to leave this sanction as they hurt the ordinary people. Of course, the CEC knows that the sin of the Zimbabwe against the sanction is their stance on land. The meeting also noted development in Lesotho and is reiterating its concern that if the situation improves further, it will destabilize the region and sabotage the economic recovery. As workers, we demand job creation and industrialization across the continent. We cannot celebrate freedom until our neighboring brothers and sisters in Zimbabwe and Swaziland are free. We continue to support the international campaign against the annexation of the West Bank and the Jordan Valley. In line with the Cosatu resolution and international policy on Palestine, Cosatu denounced the unilateral annexation and appealed to Israel to refrain from carrying out this unjust plan. The Federation condemns the coup in Mali. Dictatorship must be dealt a blow whenever it rears its ugly head.